It's 4:30, everyone, and I'd like to say good afternoon. Before I convene the policy committee meeting and work session, I'd like to acknowledge that it's hot outside, and though we're not at summer yet, it brought to mind some summer songs from my eras to anchor the afternoon. So first one, of course, that came to mind, which I'm sure we're all enjoying, is Hot Fun in the Summertime by Sly and the Family Stone. The other one was Summer in the City by Loving Spoonful. And of course, the classic Those Summer Nights by Olivia Newton-John. So with those running through your head, let's go ahead and have a serious conversation and meeting. And appreciate that most of us are, I hope, inside and in air conditioning while it's warm out there. So given that it's 4:31, I'd like to call this meeting and work session to order on today, June 15, 2021, as a Webex meeting. I also want to acknowledge that we are live captioning our meetings, and so please look in the chat window of our Webex meeting where you will find a link. Please click on that link to open a web page with the live captioning if that's your interest. For the record, I want to acknowledge that a majority of board members are present. I do know that Ms. Bittersmith will join us shortly. Ms. McGrath, I believe you're here. Is that correct?
I'm present.
Thank you. Dr. Narini?
I'm here.
Is it warm where you are?
It's 85 degrees.
Oh, okay. We're going to ignore you for a little bit. Ms. Smith, that we heard is present. Dr. Thor?
Here.
Thank you. I also understand Ms. Nguyen will join us later, or is running. Oh, you are. Great. Thank you.
I made it. Thank you.
Perfect. And with my present, we again show a majority of board members, at least 6 of us in attendance for today's work session. With that, I would like to acknowledge that we're meeting actually we're in a meeting that we had originally scheduled for March, but was postponed. And we're glad that we can have it now. And with that, we're recognizing this as primarily devoted to our policy committee. You know that the board has appointed Ms. Jacqueline Smith to be chair of this committee. And to that end, she's taken a strong leadership role in this and has put together with others a good agenda for us, and will talk to us how we're going to move forward in our continuing acknowledgement and experience with our policies as board members and as a community. So with that, Ms. Smith, the meeting is yours, and please continue.
Great, thanks everyone. Appreciate you joining today. And in addition to the fellow board members, thank you to all of the folks who have helped make this meeting possible and who are joining on the line. Before we jump into the 2 main topics of today's policy committee meeting, I want to begin by celebrating one of our district staff members who recently was elected to serve on a board of directors that is very apropos to our policy discussion. So Judy Gregg, and please let me know later if I am mispronouncing your last name, Judy. She is in our district's Office of Public Stewardship, and she was elected to serve on a national board of directors for the Association of College and University Policy Administrators. And so deep congratulations to her, and thank you for representing the Maricopa Community Colleges on this board. We really appreciate it. Today we're jumping into 2 topics, and over the course of the next several months with our policy committee, we'll be exploring a variety of the policies that our board follows, some of which have not been reviewed in some time, and we may as a board decide to update those policies, and some for a new board member like myself and for Ms. Bittersmith are useful to just review and familiarize ourselves as we enter our first year. And I want to note that this type of discussion and introduction into policy topics is something that we hope to continue in future work sessions and also in a retreat that we would love to have as a board moving forward. And so after our presentations today, I can offer a few more comments about the retreat, but I just wanted to signal at the top that we're hoping that these kinds of learning experiences will be repeated moving forward. So our topics today are ones that we cover during our monthly board meetings when we vote on and approve on grants, typically in the consent agenda, and similarly curriculum approvals. There are many that vary in the nature of the scope of their approvals, and I think it's really wonderful that we'll do a bit of a deep dive into both of these topics today. And so we're joined by our staff experts in these topics. And as you could see from the materials that were sent in advance, we're going to start with our Director of Grants and Corporate Development to speak about the topic of grants development and management.
Thank you very much. President Sullivan, members of the board, Dr. Gonzalez, members of the CEC and guests, my name is Livier Kantz and I'm the District Director of Grants, Development and Management. Next slide, please. Ms. Smith, is this your slide?
Oh, sure, I can do this slide. So as I mentioned in my opening comments, there are a variety of policies that apply to the discussion that we're having today. And today, for reference, you'll see that the following policies noted here relate to our discussion. Next slide.
Thank you. So Maricopa Community College District has been the recipient of private and public grants for over 40 years. Grant development, management, and compliance support stakeholders is conducted by staff at the District Grants Development and Management Department, grant managers, officers, and liaisons at the 10 colleges, and by the District Grants Accounting Office within the Controller's Office, who conduct the post-award fiscal management of all private and public awarded grants to Maricopa Community College. The District Grants Development and Management Department, in collaboration with the campus and district office division leadership and grant managers and officers, promote the development and enhancement of college and district strategies and priorities through prospect research and cultivation efforts, grant proposal development processes, and development management and compliance technical assistance. Next slide, please. Why does Maricopa seek public grants? Funding proposals are submitted to both public and private external sources in order to foster teaching and learning, meet student, community, and workforce needs, and promote institutional development and innovation. Grants provide an additional funding stream to further Maricopa's strategic goals and priorities. Next slide, please. The importance of grants acceptance processes. Timely acceptance of funds either by administrative acceptance or by governing board approval allows projects to start on time, therefore allowing the benefits of grant funds to reach students and institutions more expediently, such as scholarships, tutoring, internships, purchase of equipment. It preserves the project period timelines, and it maintains the compliance with funder expectations. Next slide, please. When a grant goes for for action item approval, it can take 2 to 4 months from the time that we receive the award. As you can see, when it reaches you, it can take 3 to 5 weeks depending on when the action item goes before you. Once you have approved that, it goes to grants accounting for them to activate the grant, and that allows then for expenditures to start taking place. And finally, the actual start time begins, and we can disperse scholarships, stipends, materials, or whatever it is that the grant is supporting. Next slide, please. There are grant acceptance control processes. For grants that are under $100,000, as soon as we receive the letter of award, it goes to the college president for their acceptance. Next, it comes to me at the district office. It gets forwarded to the associate vice chancellor, then on to the provost, and finally to grants accounting, which is the chancellor's designee, to set up the account. When grants are over $100,000, again, the paperwork goes to the college president, then on to the associate vice chancellor, the provost, and then it comes to you for final approval. Next slide, please. In the last 5 years, we have received an average of $19,439,191. And one of the things that we've also been doing is tracking how the different grants are meeting the Maricopa District strategy commitments. So in fiscal year 1920, you will notice that 60% of the funds that came in were to support the priority building thriving community through access and success. 26 went to be a driving force for economic workforce development, and the third sector being to attain recognition as an innovator at 14%. Next slide, please. We wanted to give you an example of grants that we've recently received and the areas that they are supporting. Mesa Community College received 2 TRIO grants, which is supporting the strategy of building a thriving community through access and success. And the other one is at Phoenix College, and that one is supporting driving force for economic and workforce development. Next slide, please. That's my presentation. Thank you. Any questions?
I would encourage board members to jump in with questions at this time on this topic, and then we'll do another pause for questions on our next topic as well.
Ms. Smith?
Yes.
This is Dr. Thor. This is an interesting presentation, but is there a policy recommendation coming forth from the staff in this area?
Thank you for the question. The staff are preparing recommendations for our review and are considering the timing for that recommendation, but we decided to include this introductory material before the recommendation was made. Part of what is also has also occurred, and I'll be reviewing the final results, are a benchmarking analysis to look at how other districts of comparable size manage the grant approval processes. And in particular, if we could please return to the slide that had the timeline that showed that we think that there could be a gap in the approval process. What we're working towards is a recommendation that would allow us to approve grants in a more timely manner. And so let me turn to our presenter and any of the other folks on the line to see if they'd like to signal to Dr. Thor anything else about the potential recommendations that will be coming forward.
Thank you. This is Livier. As Board Member Smith mentioned, one of the requests that we're going to ask is that you consider raising the monetary threshold from 100,000 to a higher number where we would be allowed to have grants at the mid-level be accepted through the administrative acceptance process. Raising the threshold will allow for these medium-sized grants to be processed in closer proximity to the award dates. Oftentimes, medium-sized grants are made to address emergent circumstances and intensive services and can be more sensitive to delays. It would also allow us to therefore give out the funds in a more expediently manner so that our students could receive their scholarships a little quicker. Equipment that needs to be purchased for the projects are purchased sooner. And again, because with larger grants, a lot of times the funder gives more time for startup. It's easier when you have these gaps. Yet with smaller grants, time is of the essence. And that is one of the reasons that we are going to be requesting that you reconsider the threshold.
Okay, thank you.
Before we move forward, do any of the other board members have a question? I'm not sure if Ms. Bittersmith has joined yet. It may be that the other board members are already familiar with this process.
I don't see that she's joined us yet, Ms. Smith.
Okay, well, I'll be happy to follow up with her, and I suggest we move on to our next topic and our next presenter. Thank you.
Good afternoon, President Sullivan, members of the board, Dr. Gonzalez, members of CEC and guests. My name is Julie Stiak, and I'm the Interim District Director for the Center for Curriculum and Transfer Articulation. Next slide, please. Curriculum touches every one of our students, everyone involved in staff and faculty, administration, and the board. You heard today at noon at the wonderful State of the District presentation facilitated by President Sullivan and Dr. Gonzalez about the vast projects that we're working on with business and industry partners and our transfer partners. And it was mentioned about AWS, Amazon Web Services, and Microsoft. And so speed for approving curriculum that supports the future of work is so vital. So we were able to launch that Microsoft Academy training. And guess what was just announced in the Phoenix Business Journal this afternoon was the opening of the first Microsoft data center in the West Valley. So curriculum touches us all. Also, we have many programs, and especially in healthcare and AJS, Administrative Justice Studies, many of those accrediting agencies need to implement very minor changes. It might be a change in a title. It might be a change in the percentage of the competency that these participants need to be able to demonstrate. And those changes need to be implemented very timely so our students meet the scope of practice standards. We also facilitate university transfer partners. We have over 50 university transfer partners, and we have to make sure that all of our staff, especially advisors, and our students have the most up-to-date curriculum, so it maximizes their attainment of their degree pathway. Next slide, please. The curriculum and development process, and also the approval process, is the most rigorous probably in the country. In the center, we only have 8 staff members, but I'm going to add AVC Celis in there. We have a combined 150 years of curriculum experience, and that doesn't include all of the great college curriculum staff, curriculum development facilitators. And so we work on average with 50 to 60 individuals for every curriculum change. And those stakeholders can be the Greater Phoenix Chamber. We worked with their Financial Services Collaborative, and I want to shout out to Scottsdale Community College for stepping up and being able to offer that first non-credit offering at the request of the financial services community. You heard from Dr. Gonzalez earlier today about the great partnerships that we have with Intel and Boeing and Microsoft. All of the college administrators are also involved in curriculum development and approval, along with some of our community agencies. We have faculty administrators in the center as well. So next slide, please. We just wanted to provide an overview. Over the last 3 years, on average, course curriculum accounts for about 27% of our activity. Programs account for approximately 45%. And then the remaining 28% really falls in that category that it does not impact students or faculty. So it doesn't impact credits, periods, or loading for our faculty. Next slide, please. The curriculum approval process has many levels. Through guided pathways, we have curriculum development and pathway mapping teams, which are faculty-led. They include all aspects of instructional services. We even have advisors on the team to make sure that they're involved in the development of pathways. We have our transfer partners involved if it's a university pathway, and we often have industry partners at the table. So once that curriculum and development pathway mapping process is complete, that proposed curriculum then comes to the incredible professionals in the Center for Curriculum and Transfer, and they evaluate with great detail and expertise to make sure that that proposed curriculum is not only aligned to what the transfer community or business partner requested, but that there's no impact on any existing curriculum or transfer impact. Then once that evaluation's complete, then curriculum is submitted to our district curriculum committee, lovingly called DCC. And DCC is comprised of all 10 colleges and their academic administrators. It also includes the AVC of Academic Affairs and our provost. So DCC approves all curriculum before it is then submitted to the governing board for approval. Next slide, please. So we just wanted to share with you about the importance of curriculum. We really like to say it's the foundation of who we are as Maricopa, because it impacts every student and everyone throughout the network. Right now, we have in the guided pathways process, we have created a very integrated system. So the curriculum is streamlined. It's streamlined to our transfer partners. It's also streamlined with our business and industry partners. We embed very early career learning opportunities within all of our pathways. So our students in that very first semester can have a true experience of what their future career or transfer experience will be. You heard earlier today in the State of the District event about how some of our college redesign teams have created curriculum that to meet those industry needs. We worked very closely with workforce and economic development partners, our own workforce and economic development office, and they partnered with Intel in South Korea. And it was just a fabulous development of process. And they did that within a few short days to develop the entire artificial intelligence and machine learning pathway, which has been offered at Chandler Gilbert Community College and Estrella Mountain. I also wanted to highlight that oftentimes we have grants, and so my colleague presented very eloquently about the value of grants. And so we received a grant for advanced manufacturing, and Mesa Community College and Boeing and Chandler Gilbert in just a few weeks developed a new composite training course. It's a 9-day credit-based program that leads to industry recognized credentials, and every one of the participants is guaranteed interviews by either Boeing or some of the other aerospace advanced manufacturing facilities in the region. And so, next slide, please. I'll open it up if there's any questions about our curriculum approval process. I know that was quick overview.
This is Dr. Narini. It's not so much a question. Yeah, I'm sorry, can you hear me? I know I was having trouble with my mic earlier.
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I think all the work that the curriculum, I was going to bring this up during the agenda review, but with all the work that the curriculum committee does and all the programming that's done and all the modifications that are happening, one of the things that I see that is missing as a school counselor is getting the information to those of us who can get it to the students. I think if we can, work with all these wonderful programs that we have going on, I think we're missing a real opportunity, a real outreach opportunity to let the community know that these programs are happening. Even as I was looking over some of the changes and modifications for today, the agenda review, even if we just use those, I don't know, I think the PR department could be come up with better ideas, but even a newsletter that went out to counselors and teachers and individuals in the schools, let them know that, hey, here's some new programs, or hey, here's the modifications that we've done in these programs. Then also making sure that we do training to those ground level people, our embedded advisors, our admissions people, so that they know what programs have changed, what programs are new, because it's impossible for everybody to know about all the programs and all the changes that they do. But like I said, as a counselor, the only way I've seen some of these new programs is because I'm in these meetings. So maybe we could, we're missing out on a great opportunity, I think, if we can work with our PR department to make sure that this word gets out to the community.
President Sullivan and Board Member Narini, this is Julie Stiak. Thank you so much. And that is an excellent recommendation, and we will continue to collaborate more forthrightly with marketing to make sure the embedded advisors are aware of this.
This is Mrs. Nguyen, I'd also like to make a comment. First of all, thank you for the wonderful work that you're doing. The curriculum obviously is is what attracts students to our colleges. And I think there's some stories here to tell. Obviously, I'm partial to the Boeing story because that's where my husband spent most of his career. But that's an ongoing thing with many of our corporations, that we have been providing education over a long period of time. And I like the fact that someone can do something with our college for 9 days and then be guaranteed an interview. And with all the job openings, wouldn't it be great if we became the employment center, if you will, for the community? So where there's Boeing, there's probably many other corporations that are working with us that we could duplicate those efforts. And I don't want to overburden the curriculum aspect of the work that you're doing. However, again, with to dovetail onto what Dr. Narini just said, was it would be nice if we could show different sectors of the community where there's really a high job need and programs that are in a correlate with what we're offering. And I'd love to see us take this to the next level, which is show the curriculums we have and show where we have need in our community, and how the college system is the answer to your employment needs. Come engage with our community college system. So thank you for the work that you're doing, and that's my comment. Thank you.
Ms. Smith, this is Ms. Sullivan, and I have a question as well.
Great.
So going back to where you started on your slide, where you were referring to the governance policies, it's not relevant to that. It's just I wanted to remind us all that as board members, that's the arena in which we function within these topics of grants and curriculum. And I'll be interested to hear what recommendations are made, but I encourage us all as board members to review those policy references 4.2, 2.4, 2.5, 2.6, et cetera. My question is tied to the process around curriculum, and you did lay out the manner in which a curriculum is approved. But one of the critical topics that's coming to governing board and boards throughout the country as well as locally is the issue of board control or board management of these ideas. So in your curriculum processes, and as it then moves into board policy, how do you ensure the practice of recognizing and supporting academic freedom within the context of curriculum approval, and then subsequently taking advantage of the opportunities of shared governance in this process and in the policies that leads eventually to our approval?
President Sullivan, this is Eric Lashinsky, serving as the interim provost, and members of the board, Chancellor Gonzalez, and colleagues at CEC. If I may, I'd just like to offer that I think our curriculum process is really a wonderful model of shared governance, and that one, the inception of an idea for a course or the inception of an idea for modifications starts really with our faculty, who then have that collegial and scholarly discussion about it within their respective instructional council. And then what's exciting about the process as it continues to move through, there are opportunities for other entities across our system, whether that be other colleges where that curriculum could have an impact, whether that be other administrators who serve on the district curriculum committee. They have the opportunity to weigh in and comment on and provide that feedback to the initiators, if you will. So to me, the process as it moves forward respects academic freedom, in that one, the faculty truly do influence and develop and design the curriculum and the courses that we offer. And then two, from a shared governance perspective, the approval process, has been noted here, truly involves administration, faculty, and ultimately governing board as what we have outlined here in the process. So I guess to your point, I think both elements are emphasized and then are supported throughout the process, that being academic freedom and that being shared governance.
Thank you, Dr. Lashinsky. I appreciate the answer.
President Sullivan?
Yes. Hi, Ms. Bittersmith.
First, I
Welcome.
want to let you know I have joined the meeting. I apologize for my delay. At the risk of being repetitive, because I was able to join in time to hear the curriculum presentation, I just want to echo another me too to what Dr. Narini and Ms. Nguyen said about marketing and talking more about the products that we've already done. Workforce development and training for the new workforce needs and additional workforce needs is on the top of everybody's tongue, and we're right there. We have been already doing it. So to the extent that the board can encourage our staff to increase the information flow to counselors and to advisors, but also to private business, I think that's exactly what we should be doing.
Thank you, and I'm glad you were able to join us. And Ms. Smith is leading us in this work session today. So if there's any more questions, we can move them through her.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. My apologies.
Not a problem to either of us. I think we're both good.
Yes. Great. Well, thank you very much. The final slide for our discussion today, just wanted to allude to some of our next steps. Some have already been mentioned. When the proposed policy language is presented, we will also note the benchmarking that will help us get a sense of how we compare to other comparable districts and also other universities in terms of board approval processes, both for grants and for curriculum. And I think this benchmarking process is in alignment with the comment that I had made recently about us striving to be best in class and really having a sense of where Maricopa is situated in the national landscape. I'll, before I turn it to Ms. Sullivan to begin with the agenda review, I wanted to just follow back up on the point around us having a retreat to continue the kind of learning that we started in the meeting today, and to continue a look at the specific policies that we may want to revisit. Other potential retreat topics specifically could include a review of our mission, values, and vision, and also looking at our board self-evaluation. And so I just wanted to signal that we heard from a couple board members about some really important personal and family milestones that are happening in the month of September and that are really exciting. It's possible that the end of September may work for folks, potentially around September 24th. And so Ms. Sullivan and or Elza will and myself will figure out the best way to work with you all to secure the time to continue the learning that we started today. And thank you to all of the staff again for their work on this presentation. And with that, I don't have any other additional comments from the policy committee side, unless Ms. Sullivan, you think I've forgotten anything.
No, you've done a great job. Thank you very much for dedicating your time and energy to supporting this effort around the policy reviews and potential modifications, and appreciate your leadership to the board retreat. I know that we're all anxious to get to that point, and I'm excited that we'll have the opportunity to do that. So we'll look further for your leadership on that. And thank you very much for today's work. And thank you to the team that supported you in today's activity specifically. So, and congratulations, by the way, to our staff member and her appointment to the board that you mentioned earlier. So thanks again. So I'm going to give us a brief pause of like 3 seconds. And Elza, you're going, okay, thank you. You're going to move us to the agenda review portion of our meeting. So with that, I'm going to call to order the agenda review meeting of the Maricopa County Community College District Governing Board of June 15, 2021. Today, we are going to review the agenda for our June 22, 2021 board meeting. For the record, now that we are in an official meeting, I would like to call us to order And with that, I'll call roll. So with that, Ms. Munoz, have you joined us for this meeting?
Yes, I'm here.
Perfect, great. Glad to have you with us. Ms. Bittersmith?
Here.
Thank you. Mrs. McGrath?
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Narini?
Present.
Ms. Smith?
Present.
Thank you. Dr. Thor?
Present.
Ms. Nguyen?
Present.
My president, full complement of the board, plus our student trustee are present for today's meeting. Given that this is the agenda review, I'll just go through our topics as they will be presented at the meeting, and we'll then look for comments and questions. As you know, at the next meeting, we will convene first with our public hearing prior to consideration of adoption of the charter high school budgets for fiscal year 21-22. And with that, we will have a public hearing for proposed budget for Gateway Early College High School fiscal year 21-22, and the proposed budget for Phoenix College Prep Academy fiscal year 21-22. Following the public hearing, adjournment, we will then convene into our regular meeting and go through the formal steps of call to order, any substitutions, acknowledgement. We will hear from our faculty executive council, the Adjunct Faculty Association report, the Interim Employee Senate report. Right now, we're not scheduled for any student life report. There will be acknowledgement of 2 emeritus awards, and then we will move on to Dr. Gonzalez's chancellor report. Following that, we will then move into our consent agenda unless there is a presentation under citizens interim. So I'm now going to go through each topic as they will be noted on our consent agenda. And the first one would be our approval for the faculty emeritus distinction to Dr. Jerome Garrison Sr. And the other item would be approval of faculty emeritus distinction to Darrell Kopp. Moving beyond those, our next item would be to adopt the Gateway Early College High School proposed budget for fiscal year 21-22. Board members, are there any comments or questions? There being none, we will then in the consent agenda adopt Phoenix College Preparatory Academy proposed budget for fiscal year 21-22. Board members, are there any comment or questions? I will note that there were some questions raised at our previous session when we discussed the high school budgets, and subsequent to that, there was information that was distributed to board members in response to questions that were asked at that meeting. So I am assuming all board members have received and read that information. Next on the consent agenda, we would move to approval of, well, it will be approval of the addition of the remote and virtual work policy to the staff policy manual. Board members, are there any questions or comments? Moving on, then we would move to approval of intergovernment agreement between Saddle Mountain Unified School District and the Maricopa County Community College District on behalf of Estrella Mountain Community College. Any comments or questions? You're a quiet bunch this afternoon. Next one, approval of bill. Yes, aha. Yes.
I'm sorry. I noticed that I just noticed when I was reading it, the agreement was signed by one party in March of this year, and now we're seeing it in June, and it didn't look like we had executed it, but I just was confused as to when this agreement was supposed to begin. So that was my only question on that, on the
Okay.
Estrella Mountain.
And is there someone who can answer that question for us, Dr. Gonzalez?
Yeah, so that's item number 7 you're referring to?
Yes.
So that would either be Dr. Lazinski or Dr. Rivera who would be able to help provide a response.
Hi, President Sullivan, Board Member Smith. Yes, The intention is just to start, I believe, next academic year, but I can certainly clarify that date for you and provide it before the next governing board meeting.
It's actually Mrs. Wynn
Sorry, Mrs. Wynn.
that asked the question. That's okay. You're with two Smiths, you're pretty good. That's a good guess. So.
All right. Any other questions then on item 7? Moving ahead then to item 8, approval of dual enrollment for private and charter schools. Is there any comment or question from board members? Being none, we'll move then to item 9, approval of curriculum. The summary for courses, as noted with the comments on that line item, and modifications, deletions. So any comments, board members, or questions?
President Sullivan?
Yes, Ms. Bittersmith.
I have some questions about course deletions. I don't need to take the board's time to work through those one by one. Who can help me with those offline?
Dr. Gonzalez?
Yes, President Sullivan, board member Bittersmith, Dr. Lushinsky would be your point of contact for any questions on our curriculum.
Okay, I will send an email to Dr. Lushinsky and then we can share the answers with the full board. Thank you.
Perfect, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions on item 9? Moving to item 10, approval of acceptance of transfer from the Maricopa Community Colleges Foundation for a new grant award from the Nina Mesa Pulliam Charitable Trust for the Bridging Success Program. Any comments or questions? Being none, we'd move to item 11, approval of acceptance of new grant award from the Center for the Future of Arizona, awarded to District Enrollment Services for the Career Connected Pathways Education Research and Innovation Partnership for 21 through 24. Any comments or questions? Being none, we move to item 12, approval of acceptance of new grant award from the Arizona Commerce Authority to the Maricopa County Community College District for the Arizona Small Business Development Center Network. Any comments or questions? Moving on to item 13, approval of acceptance of continuing award from Arizona First Things First to Paradise Valley Community College for early care and education professional development. Any comments or questions? Item 14, approval of acceptance of sub-grant award from the National Association for Community College Entrepreneurship in partnership with Verizon Innovative Learning to South Mountain Community College for the Verizon Innovative Learning Young Rural Woman Program. Any comments or questions? Item 15, approval of acceptance of Rio Salado College National Science Foundation Advanced Technological Education Grant supporting micro and nano technicians through hybrid teaching methods. Any comments or questions?
This is Ms. Smith.
Yes, please.
It actually just struck me as we were going through this process that perhaps moving forward for future agendas in which we are approving grants on this, I'll call it a cover sheet that provides some of the like the dollar amount and some of the top information about it. It could be helpful to also note how many other colleges were competing for this award. And I could think of it as the talking point for the board. So I know that the purpose is for our approval, but it is also for our knowledge, and then so we can be advocates and be those who are able to tell others about the great news of all of these grants. And so it just struck me as we were moving through these that I don't have a sense of how competitive some of these awards were, but it strikes me particularly with the National Science Foundation because I have a sense that those are quite competitive. So I offer that thought to those who are preparing this information to add that to future cover sheets.
Thank you, Ms. Smith. And I believe, Dr. Lashinsky, that might fall into your bailiwick to pass on.
President Sullivan, may I?
Sorry. Yes, Dr. Gonzalez.
Would mind. You're absolutely right, first of all, and that Dr. Lashinsky would be the point of contact there. And thank you for that comment, Board Member Smith. I think that's an excellent point to make. And while those are extremely competitive, we are also given grants where we are reached out to by various foundations that trust the Maricopa Community College District with these dollars. And there's some examples of those here. Between the approval of items 10 through 15, the Maricopa Community College Districts will receive well over $1 million with those 5 grants alone. So I do appreciate you taking note of the fact that this is something that could be celebrated more than just simply, hoping to get our board's approval to accept these dollars. So thank you. Just a comment, President Sullivan. Thank you for that opportunity. Sure,
absolutely. Couldn't agree with Ms. Smith more, so thank you. With that, then, I'm moving on to another approval of a new grant award. Item 16, approval of new grant award with U.S. Department of Education, Higher Education Emergency Relief Fund, HERF 3 formula grants. And I know we've all been pretty acquainted with what that is, but are there any further comments or questions on item 16? Moving on, item 17, approval of acceptance of Rio Salado College KBOC FM Corporation for Public Broadcasting, the American Rescue Plan Act Stabilization Grant. Any comments or questions? Okay, we have a few more to go here. Item 18, approval of acceptance of Rio Salado College KJAS FM Corporation for Public Broadcasting. Again, American Rescue Plan Act Stabilization Grant. Any comments or questions? Item 19, approval of acceptance of new grant award, Carl D. Perkins 5 Basic Grant for fiscal year 21-22, Federal Career and Technical Education funding from the Department of Education for district-wide occupational programs for students. Any comments or questions? Okay, that's a lot of grants, a lot of money. Thank you for all of your hard work, everyone, in making those applications. Moving to item 20, approval of job order contracting purchase order to Baker Copeland Construction for cooling tower number 2 replacement at Glendale Community College. Any comments or questions? Item 21, approval of job order contracting purchase order to Unitec Mechanical for a fluid cooler addition at Rio Salado College Hoboken building. Any comments or questions? Moving on to item 22, approval of job order contracting purchase order to GCON Inc. for chiller number 3 replacement at Scottsdale Community College. Any comments or questions? Item 23, approval to conceptually approve remodeling in Cronett Student Center E and Q buildings at Paradise Valley Community College Union Hills campus. Any comments or questions? Item 24, approval of consultant selections for district-wide annual professional and technical registrant services. Any comments or questions? Item 25, approval of renewal of contract between AMCIV Digital and Maricopa Community Colleges on behalf of Rio Salado College for one additional fiscal year from July 1, 2021 through June 30, 2022. Any comments or questions?
President Sullivan?
Yes, Ms. Smith, Britta Smith.
Could someone give me a 30-second download on the purpose of this service?
Sure. Dr. Gonzalez?
President Sullivan, Board Member Bittersmith, I would call on President Kate Smith. She's available.
Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez, President Sullivan, members of the board, Chancellor Gonzalez, Board Member Bittersmith, thank you for the question. I will do my best in 30 seconds. And we also have a couple experts on the line to help if this overview doesn't quite capture it. AMCIV used to be known as DX Marketing, has been partnering with the out-of-state initiative on, they bring proprietary systems to very targeted digital marketing services. And so they've been providing a service that isn't provided through other marketing agencies that does a propensity matching model for taking our current students and then being able to target students with messaging around the country.
Oh, I had a feeling you've answered my question given our recent conversation that was related to those programs. That's what I was double checking. Thank you very much, President Smith. That's very helpful.
Thank you so much.
Any further comments or questions on item 25? Being none, item 26 is approval of designation of individual to certify expenditure limit report. Any comments or questions? Okay, we're going to move to item 27, approval of medical network, medical claims processor, flexible spending account administrator, COBRA administrator, and employee assistance program. Any comments or questions?
Ms. Sullivan?
Yes, Dr. Thor.
Dr. Thor?
Yes, please go ahead.
Yes, if someone could clarify for me, does this contract replace the contract that we now have with Meritain? And if that is correct, when will it go into effect?
Dr. Gonzalez?
Yes, President Sullivan, Dr. Thor, it's an excellent question. Dr. Georgetta Kelly is out this evening, but I believe we have Ms. Martha Anderson who may be able to help us with that, with the response to your question.
Yes, I can answer that question. This is Martha Anderson. I'm the Associate Chief HR Officer for the district. It does replace Meritain, Dr. Thor, and it will be in effect on January 1st of 2022 when our new calendar year goes into effect for our benefits.
Thank you. I have one other question. That we still have a contract with Compass in order to assist our employees in dealing with Meritain. Will we still need to continue a contract such as the one that we have with Compass?
Thank you for the question, Dr. Thor. I will turn that question over to Dr. Frank Wilson.
President Sullivan, members of the board, Chancellor Gonzalez, members of CEC, colleagues and guests. Dr. Thor, we do have a current contract with Alight, which is the name of the organization formerly known as Compass. And so they do continue to assist our members in resolving billing issues, but also in identifying options for medical services at the lowest price, so that they do continue to provide a service. I will have to get back to you on the expiration date of that contract, which we have with Alight, but that is a service that we currently do have, and continuing, whether we continue that beyond will depend on the current end date of that contract. Does that address your question?
It does. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Thor. Are there any other comments or questions on item 27? Being none, we're moving to item 28, approval of a contract with Follett to provide bookstore operations. Are there any comments or questions on that?
Ms. Sullivan, it's me again.
Yes,
and
Dr.
I have
Thor.
the same question for item 29. So for both 28 and 29, our Follett and Sodexo are current contractors, and were students involved, or was student input sought on the consideration of these two vendors?
President Sullivan, I'm sorry, I just jumped ahead of you there.
That's all right. You got ahead of me.
Read that to me.
Yes, I was.
All right. I'm trying to be efficient here on item 29. I'm going to call on Gary Yaquinto to help us with that, our Chief Financial Officer. Gary, could you please provide?
Thank you, Dr. Thank you, Dr. Gonzalez, President Sullivan, Dr. Thor. I'm gonna ask David Martin, who is on the call and who led the RFP process, to answer the questions.
Okay, thank you. President Sullivan, Dr. Thor, to answer the first part of your question, Follett is the current bookstore provider, but Sodexo is not the current food service provider. It's currently provided by Chartwell, so that one is a change. And the second part of your question is, there was no direct student input in the RFP process. However, we do annual surveys of the students, so the survey results were taken into consideration in our deliberations.
Thank you.
Dr. Thor, do you have any further comment on those items, 28 and 29?
I do not. Thank you.
Given that we combined 28 and 29 for Dr. Thor's questions, board members, do you have any comment or question on either of those two? Being none, that will take us through the consent agenda. Wow, that's a lot. And then there aren't any items for our non-consent action items. There will be, as always, the unemployment and separations read with no further comments or questions at our meeting. And then we will again have presented our monitoring report, budget analysis report, Fund 1, General Unrestricted Fund for the 11 months ending 5/31/2021. From there, we'll go into our governing board reports, community linkage, and then we will adjourn the meeting. I do want to make a couple comments before I adjourn our meeting now, in acknowledging what's ahead of us. The June 22nd meeting will be our two things. One, the last meeting for our student trustee, Ms. Munoz. And I wanted to acknowledge, and we will then, her service with us for the year. It's been a tough one, but we were grateful for when she was with us, certainly, and we'll make further comment on our next meeting. The other will be the last meeting of this academic year. And looks like we'll have a brief one if we move through the consent agenda if we just move through the consent agenda. I know there may be some presentations during your speaking, Dr. Gonzalez. Even though it will be the end of the year board meeting, these meetings are all important, and I hope everyone will be in attendance. Also, to close out the year, it's always good for us to be together and acknowledge it has been the end of an academic year, and we're ready to rock and roll as we move into the next one. Which brings me then to, once we adjourn our meeting on June 22nd, the board essentially goes on hiatus for a month. And if there are special meetings called, we'll next be together on August 17th for agenda review. There may, in fact, be a workshop prior to a work session, but as of today, there's nothing scheduled. And then after that agenda review on August 17, we will move into our regular board meeting, first one of the academic year on August 24. What I'm thinking of now is we will conduct our August 17 agenda review meeting online. However, we will convene in person on August 24 for a regular board meeting at 6:30 p.m. in the boardroom. Unless there's a change. I know. Well, don't everyone jump up and down. I think what I'd like to look at is sometimes these meetings go well for agenda review online. Sometimes we have a little bit more of a challenge. But as far as moving forward, August 17 will be online, as I might consider for most of our agenda reviews. But our regular board meetings will be convened in person unless there's a shift in community issues or needs that will compel us not to meet together. With that, may everyone enjoy a nice evening, and thank you all for your presentation. Ms. Smith, again, thank you for your work with the policy committee, and again, all the people that supported that effort. For everyone who's done all the hard work prior to these consent agenda items coming to us as a consent agenda item. Thank you very much for your attention. Also, thank you to the two high school principals. We will certainly be meeting with you for the public hearing next week prior to the board meeting. And Dr. Gonzalez, I think that's it for now, unless there's any other comments from any board member or from you.
I will save mine for the last meeting of the fiscal year. President Sullivan, thank you.
Sure. Board members, any closing comments?
Thank you.
Being none, have a good evening, and I'll see you next week.
Thank
you,
you.
everyone. Have a good night.
Bye-bye.
Thank you.